skills training, whatever, it's going to be integrated with the psychosocial and spiritual components or activities for our BSRPs to be experiencing more of just learning and more of just what they basically do with other projects that they are also doing with other interventions in the community. And the last presenter for the last quarter also, but definitely not the case, is going to be a presentation by one of our associate professors at the College of Governance and Business, and currently she's the director of the Mindanao Center of Policy Studies in the university, and she earned a degree in social work from the Ateneo de Davao University and placed second overall in the social workers licensure examination. Her graduate degree in the development administration was earned from USEC. She earned 36 units in MA Sociology from Xavier University and pursued PhD in development administration at USEC. Her research interests include disaster risk reduction, social protection, indigenous peoples, and development administration. The title of her paper is Capabilities Approach in Community Drug Rehabilitation in Davao City. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Associate Professor Gladys Flor Angel I. Ortiz.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I'm presenting the last part of our paper in the SKP2. Capabilities Approach in Community Drug Rehabilitation. Okay, so for a review of the previous inclusions in my colleagues' presentations, capabilities approach believe that capabilities enhancement is more critical to human development than giving them dole out. Each individual has to count and should not be the means to achieve development, but as ends in themselves. This approach is based on the work of Amartya Sen in his book, Development as Freedom. He argued that famine is not because of the absence of food, but of poor capabilities of people to produce food. So in this program, we'd like to address the individual capabilities and needs of the BSRPs by providing them better access to trainings and educational opportunities so that they will become productive individuals in our society. So this is Sen's definition of capability. It's a combination of functionings that a person can achieve. And it reflects a person's freedom to lead one type of life or another, to choose from what kind of life would they like to pursue. So our approach is, as mentioned, systemic and uses participatory action research, and we engage with as many stakeholders as possible. We do this for three things. We negotiate for the enhancement of their well-being, including their families. We'd like to identify the most vulnerable of the BSRPs and the communities, and we'd like to deliver the psychosocial and spiritual trainings to equip them with basic capabilities needed so that they can restart their lives. So this is the difference of our approach from the traditional or the dominant and current capability building, wherein there is the provision of community rehabilitation and the police solution of TOCAM or NAP&P. So we'd like to enhance the capability of the drug users to participate in planning, and we include the most vulnerable women and young people in the process. We don't favor the previous approach because they neglect inclusion and they deter the most vulnerable and affected local people to enter into the decision-making platform. TOCAM focuses on small-time users, not the drug lords. It also does not consider the special needs of other victims such as women, the elderly, young people, and the LGBT. And this approach can help us become relevant in our strategies by engaging in the other, as cited in the book of Matthew 1. This is a reality that if you are subjected to TOCAM and you are a man, you have a privileged status. because society could easily accept when it is a man who becomes a drug addict. So he can easily come out and surrender and participate in rehabilitation. And he can come out unfettered and blameless. And strategies are usually made by men and implemented for men. In the case of women, if men are othered, like the previous treatment, narrations of my colleagues of the treatment you get when you are a drug addict and you are a man. But if men are othered, women are forgotten. So we have a case here of Lisa. She feels that the local government is not responsive to her needs as a person. She is a high school graduate and she expects that she would be able to get a job to feed herself and her living partner for 2 years. She came out as a drug addict through her girlfriend. And she feels sorry for her move to come out. And she thinks that nobody cares for her. This girl feels that nobody was helping her recover because as a woman drug dependent, she feels that the society is not ready to accept her. Okay, so this was in the slide of Prospect. The feeling of being unforgiven by society if the drug addict is a woman. So in our program, we need to focus and spend more to holistically address the needs of our drug users and their families. We believe in NOSCOM, who said that it is the role of the state and the agency to provide just and social minimum provision of support to enhance the capabilities of each individual and spend more to those who need more. So these are our pathways. And these are the proposed and ongoing trainings which we undertake for our VSRPs. And before we conducted this training, during the fun day, we included in the activity and exercise to do a training needs analysis. And so this was the result of that exercise. The top 3 training needs would be automotive, cookery, and house painting. And then, these are the participants. And then when we had the skills enhancement training for the VSRPs, this was conducted in coordination with the Department of Social Welfare and Development and the College of Technology of the University because we have an existing program with the SWB, so the funds for this training were taken from that program. So this was the launch of the skills training here at the university. And these are our graduates. For driving, they NC2, we had 17. Welding, NC1, 12. And small engine repair, NC2. And we did this during Sundays because some of our VSRPs are working and they could only spare the time during Sundays. Okay, so this was a session and this was a welding exercise of our VSRPs and a test for driving and the lecture for the driving activity. And we also have the shielded metal arc welding, NC1, and the lecture and the actual exercise. And then we had a motorcycle repair, NC2. We had a lecture and the actual installation of the wiring. And these 38 VSRPs and some of their families have undergone this training. And they were subjected to skills assessment on driving last March at SMIT. And all of them passed the assessment. And the assessment on SMAU was scheduled last April, and I think there was a progress made also on that assessment. And it's granted by the staff. And they will now belong to a registry of certified workers which provides information on the pool of certified workers for certain occupations nationwide. So this is the job of the TESDA, and this was these are the photos during the assessment. And they got NC2 for driving. And then the component which I am head of, social services. We do this activities. So during the initial phase of the program, we had an intake interview, and then we prepared social case study reports, and then community visits. family psychotherapy. We work with our colleagues, guidance counselors, and psychologists in the university, and we engage in group dynamics, and we have a case management system. We also involve graduate students, and the social workers, the guidance counselor, and the psychologists conduct case conference and evaluation. So these are additional pictures of the fun day at Eden. And then we had also had another family fun day here at USEP. It was conducted with, along with a medical mission, and their moving up ceremony for the psychosocial training, and then we had a media evaluation of progress sponsored by Dole for the funds. And we also have a partner, we partner with Knight of Columbus, and they had KFC Day. They gave out rice for our BSRPs, and that was for 4 consecutive Sundays. And then this was our case management event, where I had 2 social workers from the graduate students to assist, and also the team. And we had our year-end evaluation and leadership training. And then Dr. Gascon facilitated the leadership workshops. Because we believe in the capability of our PSRPs that they could be leaders in the future, in consonance with the theme that the inmates today are tomorrow's neighbors. So we prepared them for leadership positions. So we had the treasure hunt here, and the face paint, tug of war, dragon's tail, and the usual games that we played for leadership training activities. And that was their photo. And these are the pictures of our meeting with partner agencies. And we take note that we do this program in coordination with the barangays of Talonga. Each barangay assigns a focal person who makes sure that the BSRPs participate in our activities, and we have also representatives from partner agencies during the meetings. And we have progress into meeting with the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology 11 because we had a proposal to integrate inmates in SKP2. And then we also met with DOJ, Parole and Probation Administration. We have another proposal to integrate inmates, parolees, and those who are on probation to SKP2. From the cases referred by the DOJ PPA Regional Office 11. And these are the pictures during the skills assessment. And our most recent activity was the moving up ceremonies for the skills training and recollection. So these are our efforts towards fulfilling our belief that our BSRPs have the ability for reformation. That each of us has our capability. And we try to do this in partnership with several other agencies in the community. So we hope that at the end of the 3-year project program duration, we would be able to accomplish our objectives. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Professor Ortiz. What was highlighted so far from the first part, second to the third, is the idea that the way we address drug dependency issue, or the experience of these BSRPs that we call, is we dwell and we use their deprivation experiences. And we argue that they are not just experiencing poverty or drug dependency, it's a whole range of experiences, deprivation experiences that they in fact are dealing every day in their lives. And so that's why the approach is somehow very much related to the theme of this conference, which happens to be transformative, the role of transformative education to reintegrate our fellows, them in the community drug rehabilitation, and in the other aspects that were presented earlier, them from the prisons. And so at this juncture, we are ready for 2 questions from the floor. And I would like to encourage that questions would be coming from different individuals this time, so that we would have diverse ideas that we can document. Yes, ma'am, from the back. You have the microphone on the side, please, if you may. Thank you. Please state your name, though we know you already. And please tell us who you're addressing the question to. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Emily Villanueva from Lloyd State University. I'd like to address my question to the second speaker. Okay, so the project was indeed commendable. It's not easy to encourage Tukang surrenders to join you in your extension program. So I'm just curious, ma'am, how is the process critiquing done?
Excuse me, the process of what?
It was mentioned in your presentation that you have utilized or employed process critiquing. So how is it done?
Okay. I'm ready to answer. Yeah, because I'm the program leader of the Sagukin of Way program too, so I may answer the question, ma'am, if you will allow me. Yeah. Okay. Regarding the process critique, what we're trying to say there is the process is multi-level. We do not just dwell with asking questions what their needs are from the individual level, because the focus of capabilities approach supposed to be is to ask questions, as many questions, at the individual level. And then that's the first stage, and then it will go to the next stage, the family level. We also encourage dialogues, conversations with family members, clan level, up to the community level, and up to the whole city, or you call it region level, because we are also sitting in the inter-regional panel for anti-drug abuse.
So, sir, was it not in the presence of the psychologists or again?
No, it's a different process we call in the process critique. Yeah, it's a theoretical process critique we mean. That it's multi-level at different tiers.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Another question, please, or comment?
May I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
Perhaps the curiosity was how do we process whom to include? Because there are a lot of surrenderies. So there was an assessment made by social workers based on an instrument that is used for assessment whether you are severe, mild, or moderate. And we included in the program those who are judged as mild users, because they can still be addressed by the program. Those who are on the higher level of during assessment would be referred to institutions or other entities which would be able to address their needs because they are no longer in the mild stage.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Ortiz. That's another interpretation of the process critique. Ma'am, are you satisfied with the responses? Thank you very much. May we hear another one, the last one? Professor both in the College of Education and College of Arts and Sciences at Rizal Memorial Colleges, and concurrently the Court Legal Researcher of the Regional Trial Court Branch 13, an executive and exclusive drugs court in Davao City. He took his law at University of Mindanao and his master's degree at Rizal Memorial Colleges, where he was awarded Best in Research. His research and publication focus on the rehabilitation and mainstreaming of minors in Davao City, a cry for an alternative delivery mode of education. The paper he's going to present is titled Rehabilitation and Mainstreaming of Minors in Davao City, a cry for alternative delivery mode of education. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Sir Patrick Jude Fajardo II.
Thank you, Dr. Gascoigne. Before anything else, I would like Dr. Maisel, Yusef, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. We can present our respective efforts. How does it feel when the earth under you trembles, just like the footsteps of an entire army? How does it feel when all of a sudden, while you and your parents are dining at Piape, what is that Piape? Boulevard, group of men outside of your door shouting, "Ayo, ayo, mga taga Santa Ana Police me, mag-implement me o warrant. We are from Santa Ana Police, we are implementing a search warrant." What will you do when after the male person removing his vocab as a pre-arranged signal somewhere at Isla Verde, the same boulevard area, a crowd of men wearing green polo shirts would kneel around, handcuff you, and declare, "This is bypass. We are from the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency." What happens to you when last night you were caught by the police for only having violated liquor ban during the recently concluded barangay elections, but on the following day you were surprised when the ABS-CBN and the GMA men are there taking photos of you because accordingly you were apprehended of selling shabu. One bag of shabu. In fact, a pack of shabu was placed there, displayed in front of you on the following morning in one of the police stations in Davao. How does it feel to take when here, worse, that person is a 6-year-old child? Ladies and gentlemen, apart from being an educator, I am also a legal researcher of the Regional Trial Court Branch 13 here in Davao, an exclusive drugs court. From breakfast, lunch, and dinner, meth, or shabu, and marijuana and cocaine are our daily bread. 100% of our cases are heinous crimes. I'm all the time immersed with persons found positive for use of drugs daily. Then it caused me to wonder, oh, is there life after being incarcerated? What now happens to their lives, to their loved ones? What happens to their education? Can they go back to their respective schools, communities, after here? This is the reason why I made a study entitled The Rehabilitation, Mainstreaming of Minors in Davao City, a Cry for Alternative Delivery Mode of Education. In this study, I employed phenomenological qualitative design because I believe this is the best suited to bring about the true description of the experience, feelings, knowledge, motivation, and wisdom of those minors, those children who are now inside the Davao City Rehab Center, somewhere there at Bago Sierra, Topo, Davao City. This study is guided by the following inquiry. 1. What experiences do these children acquire within the premises of the Rehabilitation Center in Davao City? 2. How do they manage to survive inside the Rehabilitation Center? And the last one, what insights and realization can be drawn out from the results of the study? From my readings, I have come up with themes on the experiences of minors in the rehab center, starting off from the time of their arrest and apprehension. One child said, "Iko raman ko naghatag o silopin sa tao. It was then gidakop dayon ko. I was just giving a plastic sachet to that man. Then suddenly I was being arrested." This child under study practically was a 6-year-old child. Then this child was found positive for shabu. Why? Because at their house, si takal. You know what takal mean? Takus. Sa English na tapos? Oh, yes, weighing. He was in charge of weighing and placed it inside an elongated or square-sized plastic sachet. There was a white crystalline substance he didn't understand, but everyone was using. When I was little, my dad usually said, "Dog, pakiduk ka na akong tabako, you light my cigarette." So that I lighted his cigarette but before giving it to him, I smoked it. Because of him, I was inquisitive. Arrest, apprehension. There were those who were rescued at Claveria, that dark corner there, sniffing volatile substances. And those who were brought by their parents to the rehab, they were voluntarily surrendered. The second figure there, I have listened to the narrations of minors about is there really an education being provided inside the rehab as to literacy program, their spiritual enhancement, physical development, and how does this daily routine or the house rules being followed inside the rehab centers? Remember, these are minors. And I have discovered that once a minor child is committed for rehabilitation, there is now a discontinuance of education. Then, this creates a gap of education which now ends up to undesirable outcomes, not favorable to the welfare of the child. The study revealed the uncertainty of whether or not the child, after undergoing rehab, can continue education in formal educational system, as often brandishing them with the stigma of being drug addicts, thus ostracizing them in their respective communities. The implications would be, rehabilitation of minor children should not only focus on the getting rid of drugs by any force or circumstances that will avoid them from taking illegal drugs. Rehabilitation from drugs of these children should not compromise other basic rights of the minors, and that includes education, which of course, in all intents and purposes, the no-jumping board in obtaining brighter future. The future directions of this study would be: 1. Rehabilitation of children who are engaged into illegal drugs should be made to be encompassing all consideration and factors influencing and affecting the child. Second, in the centerfold of these factors should be the educational rehabilitation of the child. In doing so, the rehabilitation of the child cannot now be a reason that his education will be hampered. 3. Instead, providing special education within the periphery of the rehabilitation center will become a tool in the effective reformation and rehabilitation of the child. This special education should be made available, accessible, and mandatory for minors who become residents in the rehab center. Next, the Department of Education should establish a task force that will focus on providing an in-depth study, strategic planning, and redesigning tools for basic education that will address the peculiar needs and circumstances of minors in the rehab center. Next, the supposed special education designed for rehab of residents should be made in parallel and equivalent to that standards being provided in the formal education outside rehab. 8. Such that, in the event where the child has completed his rehab program and now he emerges in the mainstream of his own community outside rehab center, once he is launched back in the formal education, his status goes in parallel or equal to those of his previous peers and classmates, and the fear of being left behind can be avoided. 9. this translates to a special education program provided in the rehab center that enables a child promotion of grade level matching and corresponding to the grade level in the formal education. Providing this scheme will ultimately discourage bullying and marginalization of the child who has just been released from rehab center once he goes back to the community where he previously had. 11. There would seem a sense of acceptance and acknowledgement, for without acceptance, the feeling of rejection in the part of the newly rehabilitated child will bring back the child to his own dismal ways by looking for those former peers and friends whom they find can accept and understand them. 12. The Department of Education in both public and private schools should provide a specific training for teachers to handle special cases of children who have just been coming from rehab centers. The last one, I think, guidance counselors, teachers should have acquired special skills in harmonizing the intricacies in attending to the needs of these children once identified and enrolled back to the formal education program, recognizing the fact that rehabilitation does not end at the walls of rehab centers, but extends to the doorsteps of the schools outside them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Professor Parker. That was indeed captivating, the presentation. And if I may just make a recap of that, what you're trying to say to us is that what happens next after these minors or youth are put in the rehabilitation for the rehab? What awaits them in the community? And that is the big question he's trying to raise. And I think it's raised to the top among universities and LGUs and agencies to do something better. Because we've been doing something now, or quite a lot of things have been done in the area, but measuring whether or not we have indeed reintegrated them, we make these kids ready for their roles in the wider community, that is the big question. And that sums up our paper presentations this morning. And I think, in as much as we would like to give you the floor, we would like to give the floor the opportunity to ask questions. I think we are depriving that to you now because it's already 12 and we need to start our program 1 o'clock. So I'm giving the microphone. Thank you very much for your patience. But I'm giving the microphone now to our MCs. Please stay behind. Stay forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gaspon, for effectively leading the paper presentation part of our conference. And can we give our speakers another round of applause, please? Thank you so much for presenting those findings in your research and extension works. At this point, before we enjoy the break, I will have this certificate of recognition part for these first 6 paper presentation presenters, and I would like to request Dr. Alan Meisel to assist in the awarding of the certificate of recognition. Allow me to read the citation. Certificate of recognition is presented to Ms. Marcel S. Bautista, Occidental Mindoro State College, for having presented the paper entitled Part 1, Access to Healthcare Services of the Female Inmates in Local Jails in San Jose Occidental, Mindoro, in the first international conference on inmates transformative education for successful re-entry, signed by the President of the University of Southeastern Philippines, Dr. Lourdes Canarelao, and Dr. Alan David Meisel, President of CEPIA. And we have here the statue post, please. Equally recognized is Dr. Donna D. Paganiban from Occidental Mindoro State College for having successfully presented the paper Level of Effectiveness of Programs and Services for Female Inmates inmates in the local jails in San Jose Occidental, Mindoro as paper presenter in the first International Conference on Inmates and Transformative Education for Successful Re-Entry. From Jose Rizal Memorial State University of the University Philippines for having presented the paper entitled Predictive Factors Influencing Crime Commission Among Professionals in the First International Conference on Inmates Transformative Education for Successful Re-Entry. Certificate of recognition is also given to Dr. Evelyn R. Villanueva from Romblon State University for having presented the paper Ayuda sa Celda, Why It Matters to Serve the Vulnerable, a jail-based model for moral recovery and development of inmates in Odiongan District Jail. We wish you all the best, Attorney Josefina E. Dublin Corena. Thank you so much for presenting your paper entitled Theorizing Participation Within the Juvenile Delinquency Discourse, a critical systemic analysis of children in conflict with the law in Davao City. Presented in the first International Conference on Inmates and Transformative Education for Successful Re-Entry. Last but not least, certificate of recognition is also awarded to Mr. Patrick June C. Fajardo of Rizal Memorial Colleges, Davao City, for presenting the paper entitled Rehabilitation and Mainstreaming of Minors in Davao City, a cry for alternative delivery mode of education. In this first International Conference on Inmates Transformative Education for Successful Re-Entry. Alright, so thank you so much, Dr. Maisel. We still have one more cluster, 3 more papers specifically to be presented this afternoon. And so it is a must that we begin or we resume our program this afternoon at 1 o'clock. As much as we want to extend more for the forum. But
good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for staying. I'll be presenting my paper entitled Exploring the Life Chances of the Voluntary Submission for Reformation Persons or VSRPs under the USEP SKP2 program in Davao City. So the background of my study is, of course, exploring the disadvantaged status of the drug users and their families in the community drug rehab efforts. And this is under the ambit of the USEP's extension program implemented by the universities. So these drug surrenderies, of course, were under the Tokhang. We know that Tokhang is from the root word Tok Tok and Hangyo, or the knock and plead. This is the part of the drug war of the current administration. So this illustration somehow summarizes the difference between the poor drug users as compared to those better off drug users. They are given with a lifeline. So as you can see, part of the illustration, one is caught in the deprivation trap of poverty, powerlessness, isolation, physical weakness, and vulnerability, with very slim chances of survival, unless there's some form of help that will come along to save him. So the background of the study, Sagop Kinabuhi literally means save a life. I argue that saving life is beyond politics, and it should at least adhere to the basic principles of human dignity. So we ask the question, what is each person able to do and to be by NASPOM 2011? We also argue that there's no one truth in illegal drug dependency and intervention. So far, the dominant reductionist theory of drug discourse simplifies our understanding of drug use and drug users and intervention. At the center of this discourse lies the process of othering, or calling these drug users as deviants of society, by McEwan 2009. And the worst is that if drug users are mostly men, so what about the women? They become forgotten, invisible, or silenced. So yan, drug user ako, papatayin mo ba ako? So far, the research now indicates that addiction treatment programs that address women's unique needs are more effective for women than traditional programs. Because women prefer to seek and pursue treatment when it is holistic. So far, USEP SKP2 tries to engage with the mild drug users after they have been assessed by the DOH and the DSWD. And so far also, USEP SKP2 highlights the community rebuilding and renewal using the capabilities approach, which will be explained further in the two other speakers. And this program, this extension program, focuses on the voice and choice of individuals, not as a group. Okay, this is a comparison between the dominant capability building, and we try to use the capabilities approach. We also try to approach this program using systemic and not systematic, in a not systematic way of addressing the drug rehabilitation efforts. We also try to use the boundary critiques, problem critique, and the process critique, because we need to have a collective action and we should try to move beyond the other. We also try to find ways that are innovative, creative, and resolute in addressing the drug rehabilitation efforts. For this presentation, I try to limit my problems to be answered. One is what is the out of the 5, I will be answering the drivers of drug use among the drug users in Davao City, and what would the VSRPs and their families need to help improve their well-being and life chances. Significance of the study. So far, I tried to engage with 32 VSRPs, women, their families, the policymakers, program partners, and the academic community. And this study hopes to provide an alternative view in addressing the drug problem, contribute to the discourse for the USEP SKP2 extension program, and also try to explore the gender perspective of the drug problem and treatment. And of course, we try to highlight the stories of those others. Scope and limitation, it should be 32 VSRPs and their families in Taloma District, Davao City, and some from Agdao District. The present drug situation. Globally, there are many. 250 million people who use drugs or at least once in their lifetime. In the Philippines, of course, we have erratic data. But so far, according to PDEA in 2017, there are 4.7 billion drug personalities. But DDB, the Dangerous Drug Board, reported in 2015 that there were only 1.8 million. Maybe they haven't found them yet back then. So locally, it was already reported yesterday, there's a jail jam. There's a 599% congestion rate in the Davao Region jails, as reported by the BJMP. And this has been taken or sourced out from the PNP report. So far, they were able to visit 77,555 houses in the Davao Region, 4 provinces. And of course, it was also reported that there were 146 deaths during police operation. This data was taken from July 1, 2016 to October 2017. So, for the total number of surrenderies, there were 66,000, and the female of them comprised only about 3% of the total population. So, the connection between drugs and poverty. Poor people are more vulnerable because they are more likely to live on the margins of society, according to the UNODC. And of course, with drug use, it can also exacerbate poverty and marginalization, creating a vicious cycle. With this, they happen to be in the deprivation trap. They experience the deprivation trap as illustrated earlier. The trap of powerlessness, vulnerability, physical weakness, poverty, and isolation. So what's the profile of a drug user? We already know they're usually male, unemployed, and poor. So this is the profile in the Davao region as reported by the PNP. The connection between drug use and gender. So far, as reported by DDP in 2016, only about 6.68% of the females admitted cases in drug rehab facilities. But in Davao region, there's only about 2,000 female surrenderers, or 3.24%. This is because women's addictions have been characterized by silence. They become invisible because of strong social taboos. And of course, women have unique needs in drug abuse treatment, and women's life circumstances usually have the most influence. And because women's drug use carries a double stigma. So far, out of the 32 BSRP's research participants, 53% are males, with ages ranging from 16 to 38%, 16 years old to 38 years old. Most of them are married, and most are have graduated from high school or in their high school levels. And of course, most are unemployed, or some reported to be self-employed, but we don't know their level of income. So the theoretical lens are, we try to approach this drug addiction, and we are trying to veer away from the reductionist, positivistic, and hegemonic approach to this drug rehab. Because drug users, they are in conflict with the law, they are usually passive recipients of interventions. We also discuss the language of power. Drug users' voices are no longer heard and thus considered powerless. They are also considered deviants of society, and the women drug users were never considered or are usually silenced. The usual approach also is experts and leaders plan for the drug users. So they were usually not considered. Their voices and choices are not considered. So we try to give people the voice. And hopefully we also make those voices competent so they become experts of their own lives and about matters that are important to them. So this is the nexus of the capabilities approach by Nussbaum and the multidimensional well-being model. So we try to marry these two concepts in addressing the community drug rehabilitation used by the USEP SKP2. So we try to use policy as discourse as a form of systemic social action by comprehensively analyzing through open dialogue. In SKP2, we partner with our drug users, our families, our communities in a critical systemic analysis. Because we use this as a platform to enhance our relationships, we also believe that we should spend more for those who need more. This is a qualitative research. I did KI at GG&K study. So the results and discussions, there were 32 VSRPs who undertook the in-depth interviews at GDs and workshops. And then somehow, the thematic analysis centered on the themes said by men para makalahutay o sustain ko sa trabaho, to sustain their work. For women, para mahuman, to finish na ako ang ako mga trabaho or work. And all this refer to work to earn income in order to combat poverty. So the push factors include peer pressure, family-related problems. Push factors also includes work, which is related to earning income. Income, depression, curiosity, and one mentioned about sex. The pull factors also include using drugs gives them more energy, which relates to work, gives them a feeling of happiness, a sense of belongingness. They temporarily forget pain and their problems. And they also said that because it's available and the law was somehow lenient back then, gives them easy money. So in summary, using the participatory action research, this is closely connected to the processes of social planning. I believe that planning should sufficiently consider the needs of those involved and the affected, giving the people the voice, choice, and agency, and become co-planners in finding solutions to their problems in matters that are important to them, and not just rely on the experts. Yet, it does not end in just giving the involved and the affected a voice, but it's also important to make those voices competent, rather than discrediting them as compared to those of the experts. So we empower the VSRPs of the USEP SKP2 by involving them in the planning, somehow giving them a sense of competence. Elevating their sense of self, liberating them from the stigma, giving them a sense of hope and become experts of their own lives. So these are some of the pictures taken with the VSRPs as we engage with them. And based on the quotes so far, the stigma, fear, and work, or the triple burden experienced by the women VSRPs, they are some of the initial most pressing concerns. So far, these are some quotations by our VSRPs. Their aspirations as humans, as people. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lucy. That was indeed a presentation that is supposed to mean that in Davao City, those who are involved with us or engaged with us in the program called Sagot Pinabuhi Program 2, the reasons for using drugs is actually because work to sustain work and to earn money. And she examines the role of the triple burden of women, as a matter of fact. And she actually found that women have in fact suffered more than men in terms of, like, if they are together, are both drug addicts or drug dependents. And so, at this
was formerly called Plan Bulabo or Operation Plan Bulabo. So those found without proper identification cards were subjected to police clearance check, and if they are found to have outstanding warrants, they are arrested. Drug busts have also occurred with frequency that inevitably results in a shootout of drug sellers. Once a case is filed, the Justice Beat reporter, the second reporter, comes into the picture and writes about the case. This is just basically our engagement and to those who will be incarcerated. We try as much as we can to present the news in both content and context. The Governance Beat reporters, Governance Beat reports about the policies and programs of the government with regard to rehabilitation of drug dependents and try to look up stories from the communities. However, we regret to say that there is not much stories about the situation of the communities that have the most number of raids and arrests, other than that these communities are poor and are peopled by different tribes and dialects. We fail to write more stories on the situation that breeds young people to sell drugs, especially along the coastal areas of the city. There is a lack of investigative reports on the drug trade at a higher level, or stories such as the 6.4 billion drug bust involving prominent personalities are not sustained. After hearing Dr. RAZONSenior's presentation yesterday, we realized that there could be more stories that we should write about and to think out of the box in pursuing stories of hope inside prisons and life outside the cramped walls of the jails. We also failed to explore narratives of recovering drug dependence, to set a model for those who continue to use drugs in the community, and to show that addiction can be treated, and that one can lead productive lives, contribute to the community, and pay taxes after treatment. The media is a mirror of society. It can help, as Dr. Doj-Nps said, in promoting and elevating the community's consciousness on acceptance and tolerance, and to help erase the stigma of incarceration. That way, the re-entry to society of those who regain their freedom would have been smoother. The media can do all its functions to make democracy work, but I'd like to say that foremost, media also has to be done. That's all. Thank you very much. Sorry. I forgot.
All right. Okay. Wow, that was quick. However, that was also informative. So the floor is open. The plenary is open for those who would like to ask or to clarify something about the presentation. It has something to do with, of course, the role of media. Okay, the media personnel, how they're able to collaborate with our police officers. Would you like to ask? Our speaker would like to hear from you if you have some questions. All right.
Maybe at least a lot of you thinking that we're not really covering what's happening to those in the communities especially. But one of the things that I asked our reporters why we don't have much stories on the recovery people using drugs is because they also don't. First of all, we have a deadline. And our deadline is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they really have to rush to get the news. And sometimes it's very difficult to contact resource persons for the story. Because at the core of our profession is really about checking facts. And we have difficulty doing that. So we usually just call or go to the police precincts to get the story. But yesterday I was talking to some of the people, the presenters who were here, and I was so happy to say that I have made networks with them and realized that they were also very willing to be quoted and to also give their stories once a week. So I think that's one of my takeaways of this international conference, to network with people who can be very good resource persons on this subject. And maybe also for the earlier presentations, I would also like to maybe get their address contact numbers so that I can also for verification of such stories.
Okay, we have a question from Dr. Gaston.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Kapusal. I'm Ruby. There's just apparently, in the discourse right now, what's apparent is Tokhang is to PNP, when in fact Tokhang is to PDEA. I know we have PDEA people and we may also have people from PNP. But I just don't know why the discourse has produced such an idea, such a local wisdom, that Tokhang is, the hard trigger of Tokhang is the PNP and not the PDEA, when it's supposed to be the opposite.
You're asking why?
Yeah. And yeah, what probably could be the role of the media po, bakit po nagkaganon?
You know, Oplan Tokhang is not new. Oplan Tokhang was way before Police Director Bato. General Bato. It was like the mid-2000s. And I think Tokhang is it's with PDEA. We know it's with PDEA. In fact, there are some incidents when they have to break in some media during their Tokhang raid. So yeah, I also don't know why.
Yeah, that's just probably one of the misconceptions that is developing right now. And PDEA is not on the loose, nevertheless, but it's trying to regain its strength, that we are the legitimate force when it's going to be about Tokhang.
Yeah, you remember last year when the national Tokhang at the plan, and then because of so many assurances, it was reverted to the PDEA last year. So it seems like in 2016 that was given to the police, and then towards the end of last year it was went back to the PDEA.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
I want to clarify the word Tokhang. It is an upland by the PNP. Yung Tokhang means Tokhanyo. For those involved on illegal drugs, especially na yung mga listahan na sa mga barangay o sa ining mga institusyon. Mana ang PNP nagkamako meaning ng programa, Tokhan nyo, house sila, na kung pwede ikaw may pangalan ka sa barangay na isa ka sa involved sa illegal drug activity, ginahan nyo ka sa atong authorities na pag-undang na, mga pinag-term, undang na ka, kay Kondre, record sa police, di man yung tabo mga Tokhang. Ang next na mga programa nila, kay even though nag-isa ng import ng law enforcement agencies, naging na double barrel. Ang double barrel, yung Tokhang na nagpadayon pa, di continue to go on involvement sa illegal drugs, pagkamap na ang ating mga authorities ng prosecution, ano sila, serve ng warrant of arrest, may bus operation, so on and so forth. Yun na marami na nangyayari na namatay ating mga especially mga tao na ito sa drugs. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that comment, sir. If there's none anymore, yes. All right, Ms. Kathleen.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Pastrana, and I'm from USEP, and I'm also a mass communication graduate po. I'm interested in knowing, ma'am, today, with the advent of technology, almost everyone has access to the internet, and this has paved the way for citizen journalists. So, how do we convince people, how do we change their mindset that despite this convenient access to technology, media still has today we hear we see netizens losing trust sa media kasi because yung proliferation of fake news and yung mga news na hindi na fact check. So how do we convince or change the mindset of people to believe that we still need the media because they know they know how to practice responsible journalism despite being accused of sila nag-fact check or nag-verify ng sources. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to regulate social media. We can't. But what we are doing now is that we're going around schools talking about fact-checking and talking about how we do fact-check both in photos and content. How we check whether these websites are true. That's one of the challenges of the traditional media, well, the media now. It's one of the challenges, checking people who outrightly just post on the internet or share information on the internet without verification. We have the cybercrime law, anti-cybercrime law, and I'd like just to share with you that the integrated part of the Philippines, and we're working with the integrated part of the Philippines, trying to go to schools again, telling people that there is such a thing as cybercrime law. And in the Visayas and Luzon, what they have are cybercrime is on scams, the economic side of cybercrime. But in Mindanao, it's really all cyber libel. A lot of cases have been filed with cyber libel because once you share wrong information and then it affects other people, then immediately you can be filed with anti-cybercrime law, which is right now. But other than that, I think later, maybe because internet access to internet is still quite new in the Philippines, and not all are wired. Meaning to say, not all the provinces have very good internet connection in our city. What we can, especially when you just use data, and we can't really see the entire stories, you just share it, and that's already crime. So I think we will be going there, and I think DepEd and Department of Education and CHED could maybe put that as part of their curriculum on checking fake news, some hoax or something like that. And it's not only in the Philippines, it's worldwide. In fact, there's an international conference that we're going to now in Singapore. We just talk about hoax, fake news, which is, by the way, not also new. Since the 1700s, there was already fake news. So it's just that we have technology. I hope not I answered because that's like 2 hours. Yeah, discussing about fake news and how we are very, especially in Mindanao, how people are very emotional when it comes to issues which they are very passionate about. So, and it's very divisive. So, yeah, we should all be wary about fake news.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Actually, fake news is really, as a topic, is really sensitive, especially that we don't really have the clear criteria how to determine if it's a fake or not, but we can check the sources. That's actually very important, that we have to check the reliability of the source of information.
Can I plug?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm also a training coordinator for the Mindanao News and Information Center, and we do a lot of trainings on fake news, checking data, fact checking. So if any one of you want to have that in your schools, you can contact me. I think I have my address there. We give for free trainings on fact checking.
Wow, that's a nice opportunity, especially, it's not, this is open for all.
Yes.
Okay, it's for all.
Especially for schools.
Okay, so we have our students here. You might like to get that chance. That's a for free, imagine. That's a free training for fact checking, especially that fake news is everywhere. Okay, thank you so much. Ms. Amelia Badiola Cabusa, and if there's no more question in the floor, I would like to request attorney. Oh, do you want to ask question, Bob? Okay, so may I request Attorney Susan Cariaga to award the certificate of recognition. This certificate of recognition to Ms. Amalia Badiola Cabusa, the Editor-in-Chief to Mindanao Times, for delivering an insightful talk as speaker in the first international conference on inmates transformative education for successful re-entry, given the 17th day of May 2018 in Davao City, 8000, Philippines, signed by Dr. Lourdes Sinarelao, President of USEP, and Dr. Alan David Meisel, President of SETBI. Thank you po, Ma'am Amalia. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our President, Dr. Lourdes Sinarelao. She is at the back. Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, so we're almost done with our 2 days International Regional Office, Police Regional Office 11. Chief Superintendent Manuel R. Garland will be represented by our speaker this afternoon, of which I have the honor to introduce him. Our speaker from the Police Regional Office 11 is the Deputy Director for Administration of the Police Regional Office 11. He earned his bachelor's degree from the Philippine Military Academy, his master's in business administration from the International Academy of Management and Economics,